You hear it before you see it. A branch snaps somewhere past the edge of the firelight, and every muscle in your body locks at once. You don't decide to freeze, something older than you decides for you. And for nearly 2 million years, that single reflex was the difference between your ancestors living to see sunrise and not. Tonight, you're going to find out why the dark still feels like it's watching you back. Rewind 200,000 years. You are an early Homo sapiens, and the sun has just dropped below the horizon. There is no lock on your shelter, no streetlight, no phone flashlight. What there is a world tuned almost perfectly against you. Lions hunt best at night. Leopards drag prey up trees in the dark. Hyenas run in coordinated packs when the light fails, using senses built for exactly these hours. You have none of their advantages. Your eyes are built for daylight color and detail, not for picking movement out of shadow. Your nose is dull compared to almost every predator sharing your landscape. You can't outrun a big cat, and you definitely can't outfight one barehanded. The moment the sun goes down, you go from mid-tier predator to one of the more vulnerable animals on the savanna. Researchers studying primate vision, including work associated with primatologist Lynne Isbell, have argued that the ability to detect threats visually, first snakes, later other ambush predators, helped shape the evolution of primate eyesight itself, wiring in a heightened sensitivity to sudden movement and partial shapes in low light. That means the unease you feel staring into a dark room isn't superstition, it's inherited hardware. Your visual system evolved, in part, as an early warning system, and it gets far less reliable exactly when the threat gets far more dangerous. Darkness doesn't just hide the predator, it disables your best tool for finding it first. You didn't figure this out through trial and error, either, not entirely. The individuals who needed a full demonstration to learn that darkness was dangerous rarely got a second chance to pass that lesson on. Natural selection had already done the more brutal version of the experiment, over hundreds of thousands of generations, long before you were born. What you inherited wasn't a lesson. It was the surviving output of everyone who failed to learn it fast enough. Archaeological evidence backs up just how long this pressure has been building. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, researchers led by archaeologist Francesco Berna found burned bone and ash dating back roughly 1 million years, among the earliest solid evidence of hominins controlling fire at all. Later, at Qesem Cave in Israel, researchers including Ruth Shahak Gross documented a recurring hearth, used repeatedly over hundreds of thousands of years, evidence that fire wasn't an occasional discovery, but a fixed, defended part of daily and nightly life. Once a group has a hearth like that, the night stops being formless. It has an inside and an outside, a safe circle and a dangerous edge, and everyone in the group knows exactly where that line is, without needing to be told twice. So you adapt the only way you can. You stop moving alone, and you stop trusting silence. Anthropologist Polly Wiessner spent years recording conversations among the hoansi people of the Kalahari, and she found something remarkable when she compared daytime talk to nighttime talk around the fire. During the day, conversation was mostly practical. Complaints, gossip, negotiating who did what. But once the sun went down and everyone gathered around the flames, the subject changed almost completely. Firelight conversation turned to stories, myths about ancestors, cautionary tales about greed and danger, accounts of encounters with the supernatural and the unknown. Wiessner's research suggests firelight didn't just keep predators back. It created a stage. It was one of the only times your ancestors were forced to sit still, in the same place, unable to work, gather, or travel. And that stillness became the birthplace of shared story. Those stories weren't just entertainment. They were survival information, encoded so it would stick. A tale about a man who wandered too far from camp and was never seen again taught the same lesson a modern safety warning does, except it worked better, because you remembered a story far longer than you remembered a rule. Anthropologists who study oral cultures have long noted that myth and moral instruction cluster overwhelmingly around nighttime storytelling, not daytime instruction. The dark didn't just threaten you, it built your culture's memory. Look at what actually lives in those stories, across cultures that had no contact with one another, and a pattern shows up again and again. The things that hunt you in myth almost always share the same features as the things that actually hunted your ancestors. Glowing eyes built to catch dim light, claws, teeth, a habit of striking from cover rather than the open. Folklorists and evolutionary psychologists studying monster mythology have pointed out how closely these recurring creature-of-the-night archetypes track the real sensory advantages of nocturnal predators. You didn't need to see an actual leopard to feel the shape of that fear. The story only had to borrow its features. But storytelling alone doesn't stop a leopard. Fire does more of that work, and researchers like primatologist Wrangham have argued that the controlled use of fire was one of the most transformative technologies in the entire human story. Arguably, more important than any single tool. Fire didn't just cook food and make it easier to digest, freeing up energy that once went toward digestion and could instead fuel a larger brain. Fire pushed back the night itself. A ring of flame extended the useful day by hours, kept the coldest and most dangerous hours survivable, and created the one patch of ground where a predator would think twice before approaching. Every early human camp built its life around that circle of light, because outside it, the rules of the world reverted to something far more dangerous. Fire changed something else too. Something less obvious than safety. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, known for his research into primate social groups, has argued that firelight gatherings extended the useful social day and gave early humans hours of relaxed, face-to-face contact they wouldn't otherwise have had. Time not spent foraging, fighting, or fleeing, but simply sitting together. That extra unstructured time, safe inside the ring of light, is exactly the kind of setting where trust between unrelated group members could deepen, where alliances could be negotiated, and where the codes of behavior an entire band lived by could be reinforced night after night. The dark didn't just threaten your ancestors. It accidentally built the social glue that let bigger, more cooperative groups hold together at all. Even with fire, though, your ancestors rarely slept the way you do now. Sleep researcher David Samson has studied sleep patterns among the Hadza of Tanzania and other groups whose lifestyle still resembles that of ancient foragers in important ways, and he found that camps almost never went fully unguarded through the night. Someone was reliably awake at nearly every hour in a rotating informal watch that wasn't scheduled by anyone. It simply emerged from people's naturally staggered sleep cycles. Some members were early risers, some were night owls, and the overlap meant the camp had near constant coverage, without a single person losing a full night's rest to formal duty. Samson's research suggests this staggered vigilance may be a deeply built-in survival strategy, not a modern invention. Your own tendency to wake at the smallest sound in an unfamiliar room may be a faint echo of the same system. Notice, too, that the diversity of sleep types within a single band wasn't a flaw to be corrected. It was the design. A group made entirely of deep, uninterrupted sleepers would have been catastrophically vulnerable. A group made entirely of light, easily woken sleepers would have been exhausted and unable to function the next day. The mix of chronotypes, some people naturally drowsy at dusk, others alert well past midnight, meant the group as a whole barely noticed the cost of vigilance, even though someone was effectively always paying it. This is also why children across nearly every culture on Earth develop a fear of the dark at roughly the same age, usually somewhere around 2 to 4 years old, right when they're mobile enough to wander off, but not yet able to reliably judge real danger. It isn't taught. It emerges on its own, on a strikingly similar timeline, in cultures with electric streetlights and cultures without them. That consistency is exactly what you'd expect from a trait shaped by evolution, rather than by parenting or culture alone. A trait present because, for the overwhelming majority of your species' history, the children who felt that fear and stayed close to the fire were the ones who survived to grow up and have children of their own. Your amygdala, the almond-shaped structure in your brain responsible for processing threat and fear, shows measurably increased activity in darkness compared to light, even when nothing in the room has actually changed. Your brain isn't waiting for evidence of danger before reacting. It's assuming danger by default, the moment visual information drops away, then waiting for evidence of safety instead. That's backwards from how you design a fear response if you were building one from scratch today, in a world with locked doors and streetlights and phones. But it's exactly how you design one if you were building it for the world your ancestors actually lived in, where the default assumption of danger after dark was, for most of human history, the correct one, far more often than it was wrong. That's why you still check that a door is locked before bed, even in neighborhoods where nothing has ever happened. It's why an unlit hallway makes you walk a little faster, why a parking garage after sunset raises your heart rate before your conscious mind has registered a single specific threat, and why small children still ask for the hallway light left on, generation after generation, no matter how safe their home actually is. None of that is irrational. It's a several 100,000-year-old alarm system doing exactly the job it was built to do, still running quietly in the background of a world it was never designed for. Think about how much of your day is still shaped by a threat that, statistically, will probably never touch your actual life. You lock the door, you leave a light on. You feel your pulse pick up walking to your car through an empty lot, even though you already know rationally that nothing is there. None of that is a flaw in your design. It's the same system your ancestors carried through 100,000 nights around a fire that could easily have gone out, in a world where the ones who ignored that feeling usually didn't get to pass their genes on. The fire went out on those savannah nights a very long time ago. The instinct that grew around it never did.